Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's NAC at Home program. My name is Laura Daly, and along with Dawn Lilly, I'm co-chair of the Dance Committee at the NAC. For those of you who are not familiar with the National Arts Club, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City with a mission to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts. Annually, the club offers more than 150 free programs to the public, including exhibitions, theatrical and musical performances, lectures, and readings. For more information about the National Arts Club, you can visit us at nationalartsclub.org, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, where a recording of this evening's event will reside after this evening. If you are interested in becoming a member of the National Arts Club, you can contact us at admissions@thenationalartsclub.org for more information. I will put both of these links to the club and admissions into the chat box tonight. Today, we are joined by Jill Williams and members of the Clark Center, who will talk about the center's legacy and its current Black Lives Matter initiative. Following the discussion, there will be a Q&A, so please feel free to use the Q&A function for any questions you may have. Established in 1959, the Clark Center for the Performing Arts was the brainchild of Alvin Ailey and other celebrated dancers and educators. Housed within New York City's West Side YWCA, the center's performance space and dance studio has provided a creative hub for dance artists across genres, offering classes and supporting emerging choreographers and small dance companies. Diversity has always been integral to the center's mission, and tonight, the Clark Center will share this history, legacy, and its recently created initiative, Expressions, Black Lives Matter, and Arts Collaboration. Our first speaker tonight is Jill Williams, the director of the Clark Center, who has been affiliated with the center for over 15 years, first as a student and then as a member of the esteemed faculty. Jill has done extensive research on the Clark Center through the Library for the Performing Arts, where the archives of the Clark Center are housed. As she is a font of information about her, its impact, and its future. So please welcome Jill Williams.
Thank you, Laura, and special thanks to the National Arts Club and to all the members of the Clark Center NYC family. Clark Center for the Performing Arts was one of the New York City's oldest and most respected organizations for professional dancers and everyone who yearned to dance. Clark Center offered a relaxed, supportive, non-competitive, yet disciplined working environment for dancers, choreographers, teachers, and emerging dance companies. Louise Roberts, who was the director of Clark Center from 1970 to 1985, wrote, quote, "Clark Center speaks of courage and commitment to beauty and love, the thrill of moving bodies, the dreamers and the doers. The lovers of dance, it tells about survival, about vision, about joys of discovery, about the singular harmonies of mixed colors, sounds, and shapes. Clark Center was a place to learn, a place to dare to fail, and to succeed. Clark Center was a multicultural, multidisciplined center and has always been known for diversity, inclusion, and providing opportunities for Black artists and artists of color throughout our 60 years of existence. I'm proud of the social justice that has always been a founding principle. I have told this story of how Clark Center NYC was created too many times, but briefly, in 2011, Clark Center alum Sheila Rohan of the Dance Theater of Harlem and Ramona Candy of the Charles Moore Dance Theater and I met in an exhibition. Romeo Bearden, the artist as activist, curated almost coincidentally by today's moderator, Deidre Harris-Kelly. We realized that evening that Clark Center, such an important cultural center, had been forgotten, and we set out on a mission to remedy this. Since that time, we've gone from 3 members to over 1,500 and growing. We've produced 25 events or more, including panels, performances, parties, and memorials at many of the most prestigious institutions in New York City. In 2016, when Clark Center was recognized by the Dance Heritage Coalition as one of America's irreplaceable dance treasures, we created this very short video, which offers a brief pictorial history.
In 1959, Alvin Ailey walked into a YWCA on 8th Avenue and 50th Street looking for rehearsal space and helped create Clark Center for the Performing Arts. Not only did Clark Center become Ailey's home, but also an incredible arts center, offering instruction and performance and a home for dance, theater, opera, and playwrights' horizons. Dancers at Clark Center were guided and nurtured by incredible directors. As Jennifer Dunning wrote, Clark Center gave dancers the chance to move, create, whether or not they had the right kind of build, skin color, or bank account. A feast of just about every kind of dance in the most welcoming of atmospheres. Clark Center offered classes with the best dance faculty in New York City. Beginning in 1960, Clark Center introduced over 120 choreographers who formed companies produced by Clark Center's Dance Horizons. These emerging companies were given professional support, a showcase, and funds to pay dancers, exposing their work to a wide audience. Those who traced their beginnings to Clark Center represented the full spectrum of the dance world. The new choreographer series, begun in 1962, suggested by Ailey himself, provided the opportunity for young unknowns to cut their teeth and become experienced artists. You will recognize these new choreographers who proudly exerted their influence and are still making creative contributions. Clark Center NYC is committed to remembering our past, dancing into our future.
Nadine, can you minimize the screen? Thank you. We're proud of the history, which provides a map to the future for artists addressing social justice, specifically now, Black Lives Matter. Our roots, artists as activists, go back to our beginnings. Alvin Ailey, Elio Pomari, John Parks, Diane McIntyre, George Faison, the Association of Black Choreographers, all presented at the beginning of their careers at Clark Center. A perfect example of Black Lives Matter in the early days is Donnie Mchale's seminal work, Games. Created in 1951, was shown at Clark Center at least twice, first by the Mchale Company itself in 1968, and again by Ballet Hispanico in 1977. This was inspired by a specific childhood incident in the Bronx when Mchale and his playmates were playing in the streets and a local policeman approached to harass them. They all ran into the alley to hide, except for one child who went back to retrieve a handkerchief. The others looked back to see the policeman beating him with his nightstick. In Donnie Mchale's own words, quote, "It was dusk and the block was dimly lit by a street lamp around which we hovered, choosing a game. The street playground of tenement children was soon ringing with the calls and cries and shouts of the young. The street lamp threw a shadow, large and looming, the constant specter of fear. Chicky the cop, the cry was broken. The game became a sordid dance of terror." Please note that Games is unique in its presentation as dance theater, as there is no instrumental music. Songs accompany the dance movement and are performed a cappella by the cast of singers and dancers. Let me thank the Donnie Mchale Legacy Project for sharing this excerpt of Games, made for television for Camera 3. And now, this short, wonderful excerpt of Games.
Chicky! Chicky! Chicky, run! Run! Chicky the cop behind the rock! Chicky! Chicky! Chicky, Chicky, run! Run! Chicky, Chicky, run! Run! Chicky the cop behind the rock! Chicky the cop behind the rock! Make a motion, 2 by 2. Let me see you make a motion, 2 by 2. Let me see you make a motion, 2 by 2. Rise, sugar, rise. Sissy in the barn, oh Larry. Sissy, sissy, I ever did. Oh, Father, put your arms around me. Tell me, little sissy, won't you marry me?
When Clark Center decided to respond to our current climate, we did it by honoring our past through creating and collaborating. Today, we begin to share our history, legacy, and encouraging the next generation through this lens of expression, Black Lives Matter, an arts collaboration of dance, visual arts, and spoken arts. Welcome to the launch of this project. And now let me introduce Ramona Candy, a board member who will tell you more about the expressions Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Jill. Having been a Clark Center alumna as a student, a teacher, and a founding company member with Charles Moore Dances and Drums of Africa, as well as a visual artist, I am so proud to have come from a legacy of diversity and inclusion in the arts world. When the Black Lives Matter movement reached an apex this summer after the killing of George Floyd, and right smack dab in the middle of a global pandemic, many institutions were making Black Lives Matter statements, something Clark Center felt compelled to do, but we want to go beyond simply issuing a written statement to be shared on social media platforms. So what we decided to do was to send out an artist call and invite artists of all genres to collaborate. Our statement in short: Black Lives Inspire, Black Lives Create, Black Lives Collaborate, and Black Lives Matter. Clark Center is proud to present an ongoing call to submit original works of art, dance, music, spoken word, film, and photography that speak to diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, and police brutality. We recognize that the artist's imagination is ignited by what's happening in the world around us. As artists, we bring attention to, we make our own statements about, and we lead the masses in creative resistance. So far, the submissions to our Artist Call have been exciting and very moving, and collaborations continue to come in. And P.S., the call is still open, so we invite all of you to submit. You can find that information on how to submit in the chat box. Today, we are happy to present 3 of our artists and their works as an introduction to Expressions, Black Lives Matter, and Arts Collaboration. In a few moments, Drew Drake, Myra Coy, and Leland Simmons will present and discuss their works. And we are honored to have as moderator, Deidre Harris-Kelly of the Romeo Bearden Foundation, who will speak a little bit about the activism of artist Romeo Bearden and lead us into conversation with our 3 presenters. So thank you for listening so far. And now let's welcome Deidre Harris-Kelly. Hi, Deidre.
Hey, thank you, Ramona, for that introduction. Yes, as Ramona said, I'm the co-director of the Romeo Bearden Foundation, but I'm just so happy to be asked to join the conversation this evening. Since that opening reception back in 2011 for the Bearden exhibition that Jill mentioned, it just feels like full circle that I am here supporting their amazing program. Also, as a visual artist myself, I'm so excited about the idea of collaboration. But I'm here tonight to introduce and talk about the artist, but also I'm bringing Romeo Bearden into the conversation because he is the great collaborator. When he was involved with the Sin-K Gallery, we'll see a slide now of him with the founders of Sin-K Gallery. You see Romeo Bearden on the left. Standing is Ernest Critchlow, and to the far right is Norman Lewis. These artists created this nonprofit gallery to give artists an opportunity to exhibit their work and curators to work with them. In a little plug right now, if I might, is a tribute exhibition for the Sin-K Gallery that's in the planning now for next year at the Art Students League. So look out for notice about that, but that will be about the Sin-K Gallery. By this time, Bearden had done a lot of advising on the boards of early art institutions like the Studio Museum in Harlem. But he was also collaborating with musicians like Jackie McLean. He created an album cover for Wynton Marsalis. He even wrote music as part of a songwriting team. He lent his art for backdrops and costumes for dancers like Alvin Ailey and Diane McIntyre, who I saw a clip of earlier in the Clark Center clip, and supported his wife Nanette Bearden's dance company with posters and costume design. He was known as an activist for his involvement in the museum protests in the late 60s and 70s, and used his position to curate exhibitions of overlooked artists. In this next slide are examples of his early art in the 1930s for the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper. This was after he graduated NYU in 1935. A little bit of history, Bearden was born in 1911 in segregated Charlotte, North Carolina. His family was part of that great migration of Blacks to the North. Bearden experienced both the poor conditions of Harlem in the 1920s and 30s, along with the rich cultural environment that was the Harlem Renaissance. Part of what shaped his views on social equality come from his experiences in the Army and as a caseworker for New York City's Department of Welfare assigned to the Roma Gypsy population. This next slide is from the work Bearden began with the infamous artist collective Spiral, whose aim was to respond to the call on the first March on Washington in 1963. Other Black visual artists involved were Norman Lewis, again, Hale Woodruff, Charles White, and the wonderful Emma Amos, who just left us, and others. Their objective was not so much to heed the call to march or to create propaganda for the movement, as much as to use their work to expand ideas about what was possible, to imagine a different world, new understandings of their community, and to assert themselves as thinkers and visionaries of a new and just society. At this time, Bearden created the projection series that depicted Black life and culture, including his Southern roots, urban centers, jazz, blues, work, play, and spirituality. In his words, his aim was to paint the life of his people as he knew it. This last slide is an example of how Bearden continued to use his own experiences and the history of Black people in this country to speak to the larger human project, often seeking what was persistent and what united people more than what divided us. So in today's moment, entering to the movements for Black lives, we know it is not new, but it feels different. We know it's a time for new vision, to come together again, to collaborate, and to look to the artist for imagination around what this society can look like. So to do that, we have with us today artists Myra Coy, Drew Drake, and Leland Simmons. I will introduce each with their performance, then engage them in discussion. First up is artist Myra Coy. Welcome, Myra. Myra says her art is a direct response to her immediate environment, her past experiences, and an ongoing investigation of heritage and culture. She explores interconnections through relationships and their ecosystems as they relate to societal units, including family, race, and socioeconomical effects. We will watch a sneak preview of My Mother's Home, My Father's Land, and My Grandmother's Stories. And in this collaboration is dancer Valida Roll.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, don't you know? No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Wow, Myra, that's an exciting presentation. It's such a nice compilation of the dance, the music, the environment. Tell us how that piece came together.
Well, Valetta invited me to work with her on this particular piece on this side. And I was working in the yard. That's my father's land. And I call my father's home the inside of the greenhouse. But I was working on the doors. I cleaned them and I buffed them and I put all this elbow grease in them. And while I was working, I looked up and I saw the frame. And I said, wow, I'm gonna hang some doors in there. And I hung some doors in there. And then I thought about Valletta dancing amongst the doors. And I said, wow, so I took a little quick video of what it might be like, sent it off to Valletta, and she was pumped. And I was like, whoop, whoop, you know? So we had something, we birthed something, and some of those doors are 20 years old.
Wow.
That's something, that's a part of my, you know, I've been working for many years, so, and doors are something that I will always go back to, and I consider them, you know, like, so they have such a voice, you know, the idea of a door. So what a door means in our lives.
Right.
So I've been painting on doors for probably good 25, almost 30 years. And so that was what was so nice about it, being able to take something that like literally I just finished and pair it with something. Yeah, and I actually painted a door because Valletta has lost somebody recently. And I painted a door so that when she was in the home, she felt a connection for herself there as well.
Yes, yes. You spoke of doors opening the known and the unknown worlds and honoring ancestors and dead. So that's amazing. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we'll come back to you, Myra, but for now, let's move on. Our next artist is Leland Simmons. Leland, are you there? Welcome. Okay, you're on?
Yes.
Leland Simmons is a choreographer who holds a bachelor's degree in English and a master's degree in dance education from NYU. He's a certified teacher in the American Ballet Theater, pre-primary to level 3 curriculum, an ABT affiliate teacher and adjunct instructor at NYU's Tisch School. He's a member of the American Ballet, he's a member of the School of American Ballet Alumni Advisory Committee on Diversity and Inclusion. That's a lot. And the first male visiting faculty co-chair for the School of American Ballet for 2020 to 2021. At the Harlem School of the Arts, he was appointed resident choreographer in 2017, director of dance in 2020, and chair of dance in 2020. And now we will view Leland's piece, Phenomenal Woman, performed by Isio Maya Nueri, and based on Maya Angelou's poem of the same name.
Many people wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes, the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palms of my hands, the need for my care. Because I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's my mother and all your mothers, and my grandmothers, and your grandmothers, and my great-grandmothers, and your greats, and my great-greats, and all you women, and me.
That's always an intensely moving piece for me, Leland.
Thank you.
I do want to mention, though, before we hear from you, that the video, the presentation that you did was also included in the Clark Center's 60th anniversary celebration at Summer Stage last year, and Clark Center's third showcase, I believe at Aaron Davis Hall. So this is a much loved piece, and so we're so glad that you could present it here tonight. So tell us a little bit about how you came to this poem, and maybe a little bit about composing for with other artists, music, words.
Yeah, so thank you guys again for having me. I'm so happy and excited to be here. So that particular solo is actually from a larger work that I created back in 2017 titled In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. It was inspired by the writings of Alice Walker. And this was a 7-section ballet, a 7-section work that really examined feminism from the lens of Black women. My cast was all girls, and these were students, again, from the Harlem School of the Arts, ages 10 to 17. And that was one of the sections within that 7-section work. And within that work, again, I wanted to really open up the conversation about what that experience was like and has been like historically for women, Black women. And I wanted to also acknowledge, the role of the womanist, the term that Alice Walker coins, as being a feminist who supports, Black women's rights and social justice. So within that, I wanted to also remind these young ladies that, their lineage is the lineage of queens, the lineage of resilient women, women who have endured so much, right? So that section right there was a reminder to my young ladies, my nieces, I don't have any children, but I call my students my dance children, right? It's like my offering to them to remind them that, they come from a powerful people, what they're not taught in school and what they're not told. I want them to know that because of those women who came before them, they're able to be here where they are, and they're able to pursue their dreams and pursue whatever it is they want to do in life. So that is somewhat just a context of, the whole work. And that was one particular section of the ballet. When it came to the poem, I was searching, just putting that whole 7-section work together. And I had to think of work that really moved me over my journey. And, I had to include Miss Maya Angelou in there somehow, the genius. And that was how that came to be. And, with that whole work, I had to make sure that I spoke with women and Black women just to get their support and get their perspective, right? Because here I am creating a work about inspired by Black feminism, but I'm a man, I'm a Black man. I identify as a man. So I had to make sure that I had them as my advisors, my aunts and my sisters and, women in my life who've been there to support me. And so I showed them different sections of the work, and I had to get their advice, and I sought out their support and, just picking their brains, and they were able to help me within that process. So I'm big on reaching out to people who, paved the way before me. And, I think it just helps the work to be, more honest and more connected for the viewer. So I think I did the right thing. People still request to see it.
Had you worked with that dancer before, ECO?
Yes, so I've been working with her since she was about 15. She's now in college now. She's a sophomore at NYU right now. So yes, I've been working with her for some time. And, we were creating the work. I had to sit down and just have conversation with her and talk to her. And she was just so inquisitive and she was so open. And, you know, I told her it was okay to be vulnerable. You know, it was okay to understand that, you know, you're representing the beauty of all different shades of Black women, right? So we don't all look the same way. You know, Black women are not monolithic. They come in, you know, different complexions, different tones, you know, and I wanted her to remember that and, you know, to celebrate that self-expression. That's what it was really about. And she was just, I think it was really a wonderful experience for someone like her, just because I know growing up for me, there was work that I wished I could have danced, you know, and now as an adult and a creative, I get to work with kids. And I always ask myself, you know, what kind of work would I have wanted to dance when I was that age, you know, to really help me discover about who I am, you know, to help me discover who I am as an artist, as a human, you know, as a Black man in America, right? So that is the type of work that I'm able to create at Harlem School of the Arts. So I'm so fortunate that I've been given the autonomy to do that. So, and then within that, I try to, whenever I can, create outside of that space. I try my best to just really create work that really challenges the audience, but also hopefully the artist who's performing the work, you know, that they're able to really take something from the experience so that they'll remember it after I'm gone, you know. Well, that's what it's about, right?
It's now an iconic classic, right?
Yeah.
It is. And we'll talk a little bit more, but right now we want to make sure that we go to Drew Drake's work. I believe that Drew is joining us. But he may not be here right away. So why don't we just go to the video. In this piece, okay, we started, okay, in this piece, this is Searching My Rage. And Drew says this is a reimagining of rage as a complete spectrum rather than a solo emotion.
Today, I let my rage be beautiful. Felt no need to dress it up. Did not care how it looked or what ground it shook. I just let it be. And it was beautiful. Today, I let my rage be powerful. Left these hands to pray in a clenched fist. Left this face to smile with a tightened jaw. I took to the streets in strength and love to answer freedom's call. Today, I let my rage be truthful. I let it tell me I was tired. I let it explain to me the term exhaustion. Let rest become my granny. Started saying stuff like, baby, you better close that front door before you let all my good air outside. I realized what a privilege it is to breathe good air when many of my family members have died. Today, I let my rage be a sounding board. Let it listen to all the times oppression made its home in this body. Times where the road ahead grew into a fork in the road. Sometimes I question my choices, and other times I wonder why God seems to leave us such limited options. Today, I let my rage be joyful. Let my rage sound like a soul clap. My rage can sound like Nuck If You Buck. Sound like Cash Money doing it for the 99s and 2000s. Sound like Kendrick Lamar's All Right, but at the same time, it sounds like Amazing Grace. It can sound like Lift Every Voice and Sing. It can sound like We Shall Overcome. It can sound like Hold On, a change is coming, and don't this rage sound like it's a total praise. Today, I let my rage be wisdom. Let it remind me of the family that came before. Remind me of the ancestors that made the brick I step on. Remind me of the bodies that were beaten on that mortar. Remind me of the resilience that sealed this nation together. Remind me that God lives in us all, black, white, and in every color. How we make magic out of mud, communities out of clay, education out of emptiness, and still rest on the seventh day. Today, I let my rage be holy. I let it be strong. I let it be quiet. I let it be still. I let it be a dance. I let it be a cry. I let it be a protest. I let it be a sigh. I let it be. And it was beautiful.
That was in fact beautiful. We had hoped to have Drew here in person, but I want to tell you a little bit about his background. Just you can also go and rewatch the video, right? Drew is an actor, poet, and educator from Huntsville, Alabama. He focused on creating art that facilitates healthy dialogue for people of color. His biggest inspirations are Zora Neale Hurston, Fannie Lou Hamer. He is last seen in the New York Times Critics' Pick play TJ Loves Sally Forever at Jack Theater in February, and the independent film Privilege in May. Drew is currently teaching with Urban Word New York City. It's poetry and literary arts empowerment. Illuminart, an arts and theater organization working with middle schools and high schools in Staten Island. And Rehabilitation Through the Arts, which is an arts empowerment organization in prisons. And he's teaching at the Taconic Women's Correctional Facility. So Drew, again, is talking about rage and how it's evaluated by Black people, and sees this again as a reimagination of it as a complete spectrum rather than a solo emotion. So we don't have Drew here to ask him about the film, but we will talk about it again later. But I would like to go back to Myra and Leland and ask a more general question. You know, since this project with the Clark Center is about collaboration, I would love to hear from you what you think the most important considerations are when you are collaborating with other artists, or collaborating with music, or collaborating with dance. What was some of the biggest considerations that artists should think about when they're approaching other arts? Myra, how about you start us off?
Okay, I think in my case, because each door is so personal, and it was a journey that I was taking, that the collaboration, in order for the dancer to, it wasn't a poem that we all are familiar with, right? So my story was in those doors, and the story of my family and me being adopted into a white family, and the process of me learning, exploring the Black self. And through those doors and the journey that I've been taking, I've learned more and more about my Black self. And so by sharing that with Valletta was, like she said, she was able to communicate that in her dance. So I think sharing your intent as a visual artist on the creation that you're creating, so that the dancer in this sense would be able to embody some of those hidden messages, and that makes it personal for them as well.
Right, share with us a little bit more about why you see your family as divine intervention.
Oh, wow. For me, the reason that I feel like my family is divine intervention is because my family are visual people, and they love nature, and they brought me to that nature, and they were able to also, my mother was an artist in her own right, and every day I did projects. I was free to be on that land and play with huge tools and make whatever I wanted. And I didn't know I was making art. My father was a visual artist as well. So I think it's a divine intervention for that reason, but also because
you were adopted, right? You were, explain that you were adopted. I'm sorry.
I was loved. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be much more complicated than, than being loved. But there's something else that's extremely important. In my family, and my parents were sensitive enough to understand that in the 60s, the early 60s, when you're raising a Black child in a white, kind of neighborhood, you need to be able to find. So I went to a Black church, and by going to a Black church with my, family, then I was able to see myself. you know.
Fabulous,
And
fabulous.
so there is a lot of divine intervention, but
Yes.
I think a lot of it comes from just like the natural nurturing of the artist in me. It wasn't an intentional thing.
Yes, yes, thank you. And Leland, can you talk a little bit more about the important considerations that artists do or think about when they are collaborating? And also, I mean, a particular question to you and your work is, you know, when we think about how Blackness is ascribed to bodies and some of the negativity involved, I mean, how is it that you can find personal expression when you're using the Black body?
Yeah, you know, I think creatively when it comes to the collaboration, at least when it came to Phenomenal Woman, I had to encourage the dancer to literally become the poem, right? So she had to embody every word that was spoken, that Miss Maya Angelou had spoken. So that required her to understand who Maya Angelou was, to do her research. But for me, choreographically, it required me to make sure that I was connected with the poem. So I had to, there were often times when I would create a step and then I'd say, you know what? I don't think that step matches the words that she's speaking. So I had to go back and reinvestigate. That was me doing my homework on my end. You know, so it was like a bit of both. You know, doing your homework, making sure that I'm honest to the words that are being spoken, and hoping that the viewer is able to connect. Because I mean, for me, as much as I create the work for me, I create the work for the audience too. I'm sensitive to how, you know, what they're viewing. I often tell myself, you know, for my father, who still to this day doesn't know anything about what I do, he just knows I'm in New York dancing, teaching, you know, will he connect with this work, right? There's those works where I create, I want my dad, who grew up in the dirty South, who, you know, grew up during segregation. I want him to, you know, who doesn't understand the arts, but he can come to my shows and he'll see the things that I do. I want him to have, I want there to be something something that I presented there he can connect with, right? So I think about that. I'm conscious about that. Now, there are those pieces that I might make where I might go in a different direction, where I might not necessarily be as concerned with, you know, reaching him or my audience. But for the most part, I try to connect with them. You know, when it comes to Blackness and self-expression, you know, there's a quote that author Elaine Weltroth had recently said. She said that, I'm paraphrasing, something about, you know, when you're in spaces or work environments that were not necessarily built for you, you know, you just showing up is activism. You showing up is the revolution, right? So, you know, for me, I would say for these works just to be able to be presented, I mean, we had the opportunity of presenting the solo in places, I mean, I was just like in awe, you know, just like, wow, we're getting invited to present this particular solo. Upstate, Westchester, all, you know, white audiences. And that right there spoke volumes, and they connected with the work just like when we performed it in Harlem, right? So that spoke volumes. We're just holding space. That right there was the activism for me. That right there was us, you know, celebrating the Black experience, just being in those spaces. And I thought that was very profound.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that for me is just kind of sums up, you know, my feelings around those questions.
Yeah, sometimes just showing up as an artist, insisting on being in those spaces, insisting on having a voice and expressing a vision, that's radical in itself.
Right.
I agree with that. I want to open this up. We have so many folks trying to ask questions. I'm getting the chat is active. And so I want to bring everyone else back in, Jill and Ramona and the National Arts Club, so that we can take some of these questions, if you will. Myra and Leland. Hold on for just a second. Let's see
All
what
right,
we
so-
have.
Yeah, the first question is for Myra. In terms of the question is, any particular artists who have impacted your work? Looking at your doors, I feel a very layered, deep experience.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because writers have impacted me. Maya Angelou has impacted my work, but more recently, I've been really Carrie, is it James Carrie James?
James,
James
James Carey Marshall.
James Carey Marshall.
It's actually Carrie James Marshall.
Carrie James Marshall.
Yes,
All right.
I'm sorry.
I went to Carrie James Marshall's exhibit on my birthday, and I celebrated my entire birthday there for I'd say 6 hours, and gifted myself his book. And I've been in heaven ever since. So I go a little bit backwards instead of forwards, you know. Let's see. If I were to really, look at other people that are just kind of really old and maybe even white male, it would be somebody even like Van Gogh, because of the level of passion that he put in his work. So I'm kind of an all over artist. There's a more recent artist that's out. Oh wow, she's a photographer. Darn, it's she's showing actually with me, with Myra Brown Green, and I can't remember her name now. But at any rate, I actually love, like, minimalist art. There's not really, it has to have something that says something more. But more recently, because of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter and the fact that we're being recognized, the fact that there's there is a whole population of white, like all colors, they're all on the streets, they're all saying something, they're all present. I feel that this is an opportunity and a moment for me to take a deep breath, step back, listen to my grandmother, and start to create that work, and to be able to push that conversation. And that's, I find myself more and more so in that camp, and looking at Charles White, because yes. Charles White is, I'm a teacher at heart. I've taught a long time at Brooklyn Children's Museum. I've been, and the idea that the work can, when somebody walks away from the work, they walk away and they have something that they didn't have when they stood in front of the work. So they walk away with something, I think is something that's valuable right now. And I find that my doors do that a lot. I'm learning how to incorporate that in my other work as well. I do sculptures, and I think they have that kind of a voice. But Charles White's commitment is admirable to me.
Fabulous, thank you. And do we have a question for Leland?
Yeah, it's how do you get young folks interested in the Black art masters?
Yeah, that is a great question. That is a great question. I think there's so many layers to it. I think one of those layers is, are young people having exposure to the arts, to classical art? So many of our young people, they don't have art programs in their schools. They don't have mentors. They don't have people in front of them who look like them. And even people who, are teaching them the art that just are maybe not as engaged or might not have that connection to help foster and support that interest if a child does have that interest. I ask myself that question all the time because we're in a generation that, you know, they are very passionate about, you know, what's in the media, and a lot of that is around hip hop, right? So getting them to understand and see things outside of the hip hop bubble can be very challenging. And I think, you know, I think we have to find ways to, again, connect those young people to the lineage, right? To those creatives who, you know, came from that era that is before them, so that they know and that they're aware of who these people were and the work that they've done. You know, I think, you know, there's not enough writing. You know, like when I think about Black memoirs of all of the Black ballet dancers who came, you know, before my time, you know, where are their books? Where are their memoirs? Where are their stories, right? Like, they're not there. And, you know, it's almost like a generation that, you know, we don't have that stuff is so important, right? So it's, I mean, that's just one of the layers that I feel is created a disconnect. You know, but again, I ask myself that question too. I really don't have the answer, but I try my best.
I have to insert myself. I have to insert the, you know, legacy projects like the Romeo Bearden Foundation in there, and the Clark Center, NYC, and so many folks that are out there keeping these arts alive through the individuals or people who were involved, or the institutions that have been involved. Because once an artist comes to the Clark Center project, they're going to learn about Clark Center, and they're going to learn about other arts. And so that is the way that we keep these legacies alive, and we teach that through that.
So I had a question for Jill, Deidre. It's concerning the Clark Center and the expression Black Lives Matter and arts collaboration, because it really is not just a project, but an ongoing concern, is it not? So if you could just briefly talk about what the next steps are, you know, what, like 5 years from now, where do you see this initiative?
Well, let me just speak briefly, and then I'm going to pass the ball over to Ramona, who's really curating the exhibit, the project. We're really interested, especially at this moment, in bringing artists of different disciplines together to address these issues. And first of all, we hope to post all of the work on our YouTube channel. But eventually, when we're free at last, we hope to do a concert to feature all of these works as well. And we hope that works like Drew's piece will inspire people to come out and create. Other works by Myra are just inspirational, as are the other artists that have already submitted work. So. Ramona?
I think you said it all, Jill, and I think we've gotten some comments or questions before this program even began about, you know, where will artists' works be shown? This is an introduction to the project, so any artist out there who's waiting to see their work on screen, on stage, be patient, because we hope that more opportunities will come along that we can feature some wonderful collaborations. We're very grateful to Drew, Myra, and Leland for your work in this panel, but there will be other opportunities, whether they're small sets of work, or as Jill said, our dream is to have a full out concert where we can feature all the artists, spoken word, dance, music, art, on one stage at the same time. That's our goal. That's my dream, and I know that's the goal of Clark Center. But it's just an ongoing project. If you haven't submitted something and you'd like to submit something, please go to the website and you'll see the submissions are there for you to be inspired by. As of right now, no one has chosen Drew's spoken word, but I think I saw in the chat several people were interested. So
I told Clarence Brooks. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I'm talking to you. I am talking to you.
Well, somebody's been put on the spot. I don't know who Clarence is, but Clarence, get your butt up and do it. But we're hoping that, looking at some of the work that has been submitted already, you'll be inspired to do something. Or if you want to submit something like a spoken word piece or piece of art, we hope that choreographers will get together. And it can be choreographers, dancers. I know there are several people who are in the works right now. I just heard from another choreographer who actually had 2 cameras and a drone to videotape her piece. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to be like. But we're there, we're accepting work. We believe that the best response that Clark Center could have to Black Lives Matter is to have people respond in artistic ways. So I'm thrilled about it. I even put a piece of artwork up. So take a look at my work and see if you want to do something.
Yay. Ramona, before you close out, I think we have a little bit of time. I saw that Myra had her hand up, and there's also another question for the artist in the Q&A chat. Yeah. So if we have time, maybe, yes. Myra, do you still have a question or comment? She's still with us?
She's on mute.
Unmute.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I just wanted to quickly respond to the comment of how to get our youth into and the thing is that there's 2 things that he said. One, which was history, and museums now are starting to show us and make us visible, and that's why young people are going to a museum, because they know that there's something there that speaks to them. So I think we really what we have to do is make sure that when we make a platform of something that actually speaks to our youth and that represents them visually, and then add our history. And as artists, we have to actually continue to make sure that our work represents also the history as well as the future. Like something like, for example, Diego Rivera made huge murals, and they had all sorts of history in them, but they also had something of the day. And those are still here now, and we still see them. So that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was another question for Leland and Myra. What was the choreographic process like? Was it a collaboration between you and the dancer? What was I don't want to say the power, but how did you both interact?
Leland, you go first.
Okay. Yeah. So when it came to that particular solo, in my head, I had an idea of what I wanted to, how I wanted her to move, and the steps, that I had in mind that I wanted to share with her. So for the most part, I was giving her the material, but then she would do things and I'd say, keep that, right? It was those little nuances that I said, and the nuances that she would do on accident, or she just was doing, just practicing, that was just her. So, right. So when it came to that solo, I mean, I've had other young dancers perform it, but in my heart, I feel that solo it's hers, because she's just really, really made that solo more than what it is, by understanding the language and understanding the, understanding the deeper context and the layer of it, and just creating, these little magical moments with her eyes and with her hands. So I gave her the framework, but I'll say that she painted the picture in ways that I'm so just in awe every time I see her. And she's growing as an artist. So whenever I am able to, present the piece again and she's able to dance it, there's new things that she does now, right? Because she started off performing it as a teenager and now she's becoming a young woman. So it's really quite magical. But yeah, that was a process where I gave her pretty much the steps, but she internalized it and turned it into something grander than what it was, and just the basic vocabulary of the movement. So.
Excellent. Myra, would you like to talk?
I went into the collaboration like a completely novice. Really never collaborated too much, and I have a little bit of an artist ego. So, but what I found out is maybe it's not quite that big after all, because we started talking, and I started showing her, you know, a bunch of different doors that I might choose. She started to like give me feedback, wanting to know the story, and then I did set the set, and I actually chose certain doors that we had discussed, but then by the time I got down there, I realized I added sculptures because I have all this different art there. So I just kind of created this whole environment, and she came down the driveway with her husband, who's this Oren, who's absolutely a wonderful young man. And he was a videographer. And what was so powerful is that when I just stepped back so that first I walked her through, because there is a storyline of, you know, working towards this place of like, just kind of shedding some of the weight, you know, and going through like, you know, these doors and at the end, that's the glory, is a lot of that weight is shed. But yet, when you stand by the end, you're at the beginning again, you know? And so and she was able to find that in her body and her movements. Now, those were not movements that I thought would go with this. But when I saw it at the end, I was very, very pleased. So what I did is I stepped away and I was watching from a distance. And every time I saw that they really had a clinch, and I felt like, wow, you know what? This is something that he might be able to try. I would go and say something, and it became collaborative. But overall, I think what was happening is we understood and we spoke a lot about how we felt. Like my grandmother's door is so dear to me, and creating that was such an important thing, because I met my biological grandmother like at 38. So she's become this beautiful person in my life. I've written books about her. You know, she really has brought to me something I didn't even know I was missing, which is my Black self in a sense. And so that was really important that was communicated to her, because she was able to, she felt, that's the hugging of the door, the blah, 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 the, you know, yeah, love, yeah, that was fun. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Got lost.
It's all right.
Not at all. That's great.
That's what's important.
I want to thank you, Myra, for sharing, and Leland, thank you so much. Your work is wonderful. I look forward to following it and seeing what's next with it. I think Ramona is going to send us off. Ramona?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who's closing? Okay.
Can I say one thing?
I'll do it.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, not to worry. So to all of our attendees, thank you so much for being there. Geez, a big bunch of you stayed all the way through, which is like absolutely awesome, and should be, because tonight was a wonderful evening. Thank you all for all the great work, your time, your talent. It was just absolutely amazing. Anybody who is interested in any collaboration for the project, all the information is in the chat box. If you were inspired by this evening, and I hope you were, and you would like to share it with friends, it will, as of tomorrow, be on the National Arts Club YouTube. So just search for it and it will be there. So thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful night and stay safe, everybody.
And please don't forget to vote.
Yeah, don't forget to vote. Vote,
Yes.
vote, 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 vote. Right.
It was nice meeting you, Leland.
Yes, likewise. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and everybody, and Deirdre, it was really, thank you for being there. And Ramona, thank you for bringing me to the table. I appreciated everybody. And Leland, man, I gotta follow your stuff.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you, Ramona and Jill, for inviting me, and Laura, wonderful National Arts Club.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks everyone too. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.